There is an island whose disadvantaged communities will be flooded by 2080. My name is Durga Sreenivasan, and I live on that island. Its name was Manhattan, the island of rolling hills in Lenape, otherwise known as Manhattan. I'm taking the train down to City Hall Park to speak with Elijah Hutchinson, the director of my old office, the New York City Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. He's perfectly positioned to help us understand. How can we prevent flooding from affecting our poorest New Yorkers?
The climate crisis is huge. It's existential, it's irretractable in some ways, and it can often feel like we have so much work to do because we do. And when you add environmental justice to that, then it makes it seem like we have even more work to do because you're adding a framework that is looking at not just ultimate targets, but is looking at disparity and inequality and the differences of lived experiences across the city because we can't do 100% of anything by leaving people behind.
I asked him how we should respond to critics who argue that our priority should be reducing greenhouse gases alone and that addressing social inequities is a whole separate issue.
Hear people out on what their social inequity issues are because we have a climate angle or environmental justice angle. Otherwise, that funding may not have been there for, making a playground, a resilient playground so that it absorbs storm water and has a rain garden in it. I might be able to deliver that open space because of that climate conversation when really people just want parks.
So what I'm hearing is that climate can't be solved without looking at inequalities.
That's my theory. I think that you can't just legislate requirements without looking at impacts to people.
What Elijah is highlighting here is a crucial, often overlooked truth. Climate change doesn't impact everyone equally. Poor communities and people of color often bear the brunt of its effects, so any real solution must be designed with their needs at the center. Let's bring in Rehanna, a single mother who immigrated to New York from Trinidad in high school and has worked in the care industry ever since. She survived a devastating rainstorm flood while living in Richmond Hill, a disadvantaged neighborhood in Queens. One day after high school in 2002, she came home to a shell-shocking scene.
In the basement, so the basement floor had carpet and the kitchen had like these tiles, plastic tiles. So everything was lifted up. Even the carpet was so soaked. And the whole back entrance was flooded also.
Rehanna explained that the leaves covered the one storm drain in Rehanna's backyard.
So I went back downstairs and see if I can get like a pot spoon. I know, typical West Indian. I went to get a pot spoon, an pot spoon to see if I could just move the leaves and just like dig out whatever I could so the water can go down, which it did.
Even though she managed to clear some of the water by scooping out the leaves with a pot spoon, Rehanna still had to haul buckets of water by hand. And remember, she was just a high school student at the time.
During the process of that, I ended up falling on the bucket right in the middle of my chest, which was very, very hurtful. Oh my gosh, I'm just being, it was so painful, like literally fell on the floor. I couldn't even speak, even to yell for help. Even now, as I'm speaking to you, it's still, that pain literally lingers now and then.
That's a nightmare scenario no one should have to endure. Hearing Rehanna's story was heartbreaking, and it made me wonder, what is our city doing now, decades later, to prevent floods like the one she survived? I asked Elijah what his team is doing to combat flooding like this in poor communities.
I would say to go to the Two Bridges waterfront, where we have the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery Coastal Resilience Project under construction and about to open right now. We just hit the button and the gates have come up from underneath the FDR drive. And what's really interesting about that as a project was it's one of the most complex urban infrastructure projects to try to stop a wall of water from coming into a area of New York City that's largely affordable housing, public housing, and that's why Two Bridges was one of the areas that was prioritized for federal funding.
Let's pause for a moment. What exactly is Two Bridges? It's a neighborhood that doesn't get much attention, even from lifelong New Yorkers. To help us out, here's a clip from popular YouTuber Tom D.
First housing projects in the United States using federal funds was actually built. And what they did was they cleared out the area of the neighborhood known as the lung block. That's a pretty bad name, meaning that it was where people got things like tuberculosis and got sick all the time because it was so dirty and so bad. That's where you lung block.
That's right. He said lung block, a place so notorious for disease and hardship that it became a symbol of neglect. If any neighborhood deserves extra support, it's this one. Now, let's return to Elijah for more.
When you go there, it'll just feel like a park. Right? You'll go there and you'll see open spaces, you'll see maybe flood walls, floodgates, but everything's in the ground. And you'll stand there and not realize that there's 8 stories of infrastructure that are beneath you, that there's brand new drainage pipes that we built that are running through the street that will only work when a storm surge comes and tries to engulf Lower Manhattan.
I took the train to see the project firsthand, right where the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges meet. The city is investing over $100 million in the flood infrastructure here, targeting a vulnerable community while also creating new public spaces. Construction is already underway, and you can hear the activity all around. I got as close as I could to the construction site right at the river's edge. Peering into a vast pit, I saw where the new drainage system will soon protect the neighborhood from future floods. In just a few months, the floodgates will be ready to rise, holding back the East River when the next big storm hits. Elijah's vision for the project is pretty clear.
It'll be great for people who are coming to New York City to go to the waterfront and see this infrastructure, but still have it feel like it's a part of the community. Yeah. And to still see it being used by Chinatown. And my hope is that in a year when it's like a beautiful day and the gates aren't being used, everything's in the ground, that it just feels like a valued open space and public space for the city and for the community.
The city has worked hand in hand with local residents to shape this plan, a core principle of environmental justice. As I look around, I see families relaxing, people strolling, and even an elderly man shooting hoops on the basketball court. For Elijah, this is just the beginning. This pilot project is the first of its kind in New York City, and it's even using sustainable materials, something rare in large-scale developments. At last, there's a truly holistic solution for this community. I went back to Rehanna to ask if she thought this kind of stormwater infrastructure could help keep families like hers safe in the future, and if she felt like it was a good use of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, of course. At least if that section is being cleaned out and checked on once in a while when it do rain or have some kind of storm. I live here in New York where these kind of things could happen, where it's affecting the people in living in a basement or, or even have access to the backyard where they can't even be able to use the backyard.
She wants projects like these to help others from suffering like she did, or even simply allow them to have a usable backyard, she says. I asked her if she could tell somebody working in the government, like Elijah, one thing, what would it be?
when situations like this do happen, make sure the person who is hurt be checked upon, and also to make sure that the landlord is doing what they're supposed to do into making sure that the area that the tenant is living in is in a safe and healthy environment.
Physical pain Rehanna endured, she also contracted ringworm in the contaminated floodwater. The small voice you can hear in the background belongs to her young son, who lives with both physical and mental disabilities. A reality that adds to her daily challenges. She shared this with me, and that this new development has only increased her burdens. These overlapping hardships aren't problems that climate resilience alone can fix. Yet she's still deeply hopeful for projects like the one in Two Bridges to expand across the city. The promise of safety and protection these initiatives offer is powerful, and according to Elijah, this first project is on track to be completed by the end of 2025. I hope Rehanna's needs and those of so many others are finally addressed. Here on my small island, we're working to ensure that everyone, not just the privileged, can live safe and healthy lives. Other islands like the Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, the Maldives, and Turks and Caicos face even more urgent threats of being submerged. Elijah's office is the first in the U.S. to put environmental justice at the forefront, putting it in its title. If this project succeeds, maybe it will inspire more projects like this one in our city and even more cities, perhaps to make flood resilience for the most vulnerable a top priority. Instead of being swallowed by the East River then, like so many fish, maybe we can keep our heads above water, like the seagulls that call this island home. I'm deeply grateful to everyone who made this podcast possible. Special thanks to Maxie Sambua, Adejuan Ojibobo, Devin Henry, and my parents, Sri Sreenivasan and Rupani Krishnan, and my twin brother Krishna, for their listening help. The one who made truly invaluable contributions to the creation of this podcast was my podcasting professor, Allison Jones, who guided my classmates and I from start to finish. I also learned invaluable audio skills from workshops at Duke's DeWitt Wallace Center, led by Professor Barry Yeoman and Stephen Buckley, and NPR's Emily Feng. Thank you all for your support and wisdom. And finally, a huge thank you to Elijah, who made time for our hours of conversation between meetings, and Rehanna, who took our interview in the car while ferrying her aunt and son to an appointment. If you'd like more information about this podcast, please reach out to dms137@duke.edu. Thank you.